If you don't strike a match hard enough, it doesn't light up, but with enough persistence, it can ignite something beautiful, and that's the genuine meaning of life, and most importantly, mental wellness. Ponder that. There are many ideas and understandings that circulate social isolation. The concept of genuine isolation is dependent on an individual's personal and intimate experience with confinement, but not an assumption generalized in modern society. This assumption is that isolation is necessarily a bad thing. It isn't always, though it is understandable that those who have experienced it will understand it better and may see it negatively. Social isolation refers to the near complete or complete lack of contact with social beings, things like staying home for days or even weeks at a time due to the lack of access to social situations rather than an actual desire to be alone is an example of social isolation, the lack of access being the problem. In primary school, I'm sure many experienced social isolation, which in turn affected their ability to communicate and act to the standard of other social beings, which happens in many adolescents. Isolation in this instance is negative, but it doesn't always have to be. Soon that will be explained. Isolation is not to be confused with loneliness, because loneliness is simply temporary, whereas isolation is a more permanent situation. When you are isolated, you are by yourself and you are unable to seek help. Thus, you do not feel a sense of wellness at all. According to a study conducted by the University of Adelaide, social isolation is equivalent to the health effects of smoking 15 cigarettes a day. Damn. Therefore, wellness is an important step to achieve a sense of identity. This all relates back to our topic. The I in illness is isolation, and the crucial letters in we is wellness, and my part, which is that isolation may not be understood well enough unless experienced. What I'm trying to say is I'm not expecting you all to go home and isolate yourselves from school and conduct experiments about how to understand this better, but we can take a look at some examples of well-known people to help us better. Thanks for stealing this, Fort Street High, but Robin Williams, who unfortunately and recently passed away, once said, "I used to think the worst thing in life was to end up all alone. It's not. The worst thing in life is to end up with people that make you feel all alone." To experience isolation, you don't really have to be entirely cut off from civilization and or social beings. You can be sitting in this very auditorium and feel the most isolated person here. It is vital for those who don't wish to be isolated yet are, that we help them, pull them out of their experience, give them access to social situations, do more than just accept people with mental illness. We have to act on it. Whoa, calm down, Sam, it's just a public speaking competition. No, it's an opportunity to get a message across. Another Robin Williams quote, "You're only given a little spark of madness, you mustn't lose it." I think that relates back to the starting metaphor.
I'll strike another match and look at another perspective of isolation. Isolation can be defined in many different ways. It can be a good thing, it can be a bad thing. The I in illness stands for isolation, but it doesn't have to. It can stand for interesting, it can stand for incredible. Our understanding for isolation is that people who are isolated are diverse. They don't feel belonged in a society. And however, we must emphasize the importance of wellness by first comprehending the downlifting force of isolation. Just because some people define isolation by what they've seen in mainstream society, by biased people and media, doesn't mean we got to listen to them. Long-term consequences of isolation range from many things. Someone could have an inner brain meltdown. They could maybe even lack to socialize with the outside world. And I will mention stigma, because stigma that surrounds isolation can create a barrier for people who are trying to reconnect with their outside world. This can be proven to be a hard time for those most needing to be connected. Stigma also fuels isolation, as it is a powerful source in itself. And I know that with the removal of stigma surrounding isolation and mental illness can be proven to be a positive to those most needing it. those who are trying to make that change, those who want to be seen, those who want to see isolation in a different way. Consequences of long-term isolation can basically start from being inactive, from not connecting with society, which leads to anxiety and even depression. Now, you know that going inside into your introspective too much can stimulate isolation in a person. Helping or caring for people like these can do a great deal in the long run. Only just by doing that little bit, helping them, start something with them to help them socialize. And only then can we really understand their state of mind and struggles. All this doesn't have to be negative. People like monks and other people who go to church or temple, they choose to be isolated. Why? Because they want to connect with God better. The difference is clear. People who are afraid to become resilient, those who prefer to be isolated, need assistance and care. But people who decide to be isolated for a period of time, like those monks, have to be treated with equal respect. They deserve the same care that we all get from our friends, family, and people we see on the street. Now you might be thinking, I'm repeating everything that everyone else has said, but I have to get a certain message across, and I want to make you guys believe and make that same change that I'm trying to establish. However, Alone in Darkness can absolutely be transformed into a unified advocacy for resilience and recovery, because we in wellness means you're never alone.
Ladies and gentlemen, wellness is a powerful word that conjures up many thoughts and opinions. Many regard the process of wellness as a tough journey. Alternatively, I will arrange the word wellness into the easiest healer of isolation, the 5-letter word SENSE, S-E-N-S-E. Individuals with the loss of confidence should engage into a self-discovery of true identity, accompanied by others, but also facilitated by the global network of organizations. These concepts are prominently highlighted in the dimensions of wellness: social, emotional, and physical. Social wellness is one of the integral aspects of our lives. Often patients undergoing with mental well-being issues amidst the tendency to be downcast for long periods. According to a comprehensive research by medical doctor David Spiegel from Stanford University, friendship is a catalyst to ameliorate these mind-boggling circumstances. He indicated women with breast cancer who participated in a cordial network lived twice as long as those who neglected the opportunity. Therefore, patients must be regarded as mentors who consult and also discuss the scope of the concerns, since there are fundamental interrelationships between illnesses. According to the Breast Cancer Network Australia, this cancer is most common in 2010. More importantly, 50% of women diagnosed are undergoing with depression and anxiety, which is experienced by 25% of the population in Australia. This signifies a unified approach between collective groups of patients experiencing different forms of well-being concerns should discuss and explore the new sense of self-appreciation and identity. Patients experiencing negative perception of body image are misled by the stereotypical expectations in our society. Social media have urged thousands not to preserve their beauty, but to demoralize men and women of their physique. An excellent representation of organization enhancing the ideals of emotional and physical wellness. Health is tough. The Toiletry Corporation. It demonstrated 6 out of 10 girls are so concerned with the way they look that they were actually discouraged to have an enjoyable life. Therefore, the issue has inspired Dove to persuade 11 million people so far the essence of genuine beauty internationally. In a part of Dove's beauty campaign, more than 10 women trialed the RBX beauty patch, which would beautify the appearance of these women who are in depression or anxiety or with low self-esteem due to old age. However, after 2 weeks of trial, the participants were cheerful that the seemingly magical beauty patch was nothing but just a patch. I want to emphasize that I believe that women and men should perceive appearance as a source of optimism, but not anxiety. I also believe this is achievable by persuading international corporations to take approach against prejudice and unleash delight into our society. Wellness is not just a simple cliche term about caring for others. It is about inspiring and devoting your heart to assist everyone to achieve well-being. As Seraphim stated, isolation is not necessarily a predicament that would mess up our lives forever. However, to achieve optimum in our lives, we must strive to work together globally. We must search for a new identity, and we must adhere to the essence of physical, emotional, and social wellness. Let us strike the match together to sparkle vibrancy and optimism like a glowing fire in our lives. Let us exterminate the ongoing physical and mental barrier with a sense of eternal destiny for wellness. Thank you.